At least in terms of the polls, Trump's odds of winning the election have not looked amazing for some time. And it's been interesting to watch some of his most stalwart defenders, whether in right-wing media or in elected Republican offices, start to modulate how they approach Donald Trump as the election gets closer. And I want to talk to the author of an amazing write-up about how some Republicans are changing their tone on Trump. We're very lucky to be joined by politics columnist for Business Insider, Anthony Fisher. Welcome to the Damage Report.
Thanks so much for having me.
Glad to have you on. And so you just had a write-up that was about some Republicans and how they're sort of changing their tone and what they're saying about Donald Trump. In your view, what are some of the standouts for those who have started to distance themselves?
Well, I think the most prominent one is got to be Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who, as I wrote, is a ruthless political tactician. He knows how to survive. He can read the tea leaves of which way the wind is blowing politically. And he's also a loyal Republican. And he, on the record, said that he avoids the White House because it's unsafe. They have unsafe COVID prevention protocols, which, as we've seen, is very, very true. That one is a particular standout. Senator Ben Sasse literally said to a group of constituents on a recorded conference call that the president kisses dictators' butts and says horrible things to women. And Congressman Riggleman, who's on his way out, said that Trump has made the Republican Party into QAnon after dark, explicitly acknowledging that the president has not only encouraged this really unhinged conspiracy theory, but he's endorsed candidates who also subscribe to that theory.
So in the past, over the past few years, Republicans who have been more critical of Donald Trump have faced strike back, whether in the form of Donald Trump, attacking them at rallies or in tweets or even supporting primary opponents of theirs. Do you think that these new Republicans who are coming out against them doing that, is that a representation of them potentially thinking that that threat is no longer hanging over their head?
Well, the particular ones that I mentioned don't have much to fear from that. Sasse has his eye on running for president as a non-Trumpist in 2024, even though he's very delicately for the last 4 years basically supported almost everything Trump has done, just not the way he's done it or the way he's sounded while he's done it. Riggleman has already lost his primary. He's out. He has nothing to fear. That's why he can be brave now. And McConnell, he's up for re-election right now, but it's looking very much like he will be re-elected, and probably will still hold his position in the leadership should the Republicans lose the majority. So these particular examples don't have much to fear from a mad Trump base, even if Trump were to lose. Some other Republicans might be in districts or in states where they do have to fear that. But if Trump were to lose, certainly none of these sitting members of Congress would have to endure the wrath of a sitting President Trump because he would no longer be the president. That Trumpist base, what happens to it in the event of a Trump defeat is something that they will need to triangulate, and I wouldn't make any predictions on that. But thus far, there hasn't been a truly brave expression by a sitting Republican congressman or senator that takes meaningful issue with President Trump in a way that could potentially jeopardize their support in a primary.
That's interesting. Okay, I'm gonna try to get you to make at least a slight prediction potentially. So you mentioned there about not facing the threat of a sitting president. I guess what a lot of people who comment on politics are wondering is, what does Trump look like when he's no longer a sitting president? And how much sway does he have over that base when he's no longer in a position of power? I mean, it seems like if the idea is that someone's gonna be running for president and I guess trying to reclaim a Republican Party from before Donald Trump, maybe they don't fear that. I'm just curious, based on your read, do you think that it's likely that that base is going to be significantly less responsive to Donald Trump's preferences when he's no longer in power? Because he's certainly still going to be on Twitter.
Oh, I think that base, I think the Republican base is the Trump base right now. What they are going to have to do practically when Trump is no longer the nominal leader of the party and the leader of the free world, they're going to have to find another path, but they will follow Trump's lead. Trump's endorsements will mean something. Trump's insults will still mean something to this particular base for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. So From what you're seeing right now, going into the election, the number of Republican names that you've listed is not super extensive. Does it seem like in terms of his ability to, in the past, go around and rally support for some of these politicians, bring them up on stage at rallies and things like that? Now it's not the midterms, he's running for re-election as well. Have you seen that is that much of a part of his time as he's traveling around the country? Does that seem like a thing that he's really focusing on in this last week?
No, he's focusing on himself, and probably for good reason, because if Trump loses big and the Republicans lose big, that's when Trump could really lose his influence as post-presidency. He needs to do what he can to make his numbers as big as they can, both electoral college-wise and popular vote-wise. He needs to be able to make the argument that I was not rejected by a majority of the American people. One example of someone really, really tiptoeing into Donald Trump critical territory is Ted Cruz, who of course was his mortal enemy in the 2016 campaign. But Cruz is still very young and certainly wants to run for president again, and has been a good, obedient Trump soldier for the past 4 years, defended him vociferously, but is already starting to tiptoe away policy-wise. Unbelievably cynically telling, I believe it was Axios, that if Trump were to lose, yes, indeed, the Republican Party would once again embrace fiscal responsibility and not things like massive increases of entitlements and spending while cutting taxes. Ted Cruz, always a fiscal conservative until Donald Trump was president, is already hinting that, yeah, he's kind of leaning that way again.
Yeah, that was with Axios, and that was an amazing interview. Yeah, and I wonder, like you said, if he were to lose, how exactly, what people take away as the reason for him losing could be important for his future in the Republican Party. I wonder if the strategy right now, where they've been spending months making people question the outcome of the election, which obviously could end up having an influence on how the Supreme Court ends up ruling. Like, they clearly want some sort of influence. But even if that doesn't happen, even if the Supreme Court doesn't weigh in, it seems like a lot of Republicans have been trained to believe that there is no legitimate Biden path to victory. And so, to your point, that might seem to make it likely that Donald Trump could transition out of this thing, even if he's beaten badly, with many Republican voters still thinking that he was denied an election that he legitimately won.
Yeah, anything other than a electoral landslide and a popular vote landslide for Biden will inevitably mean a meaningful portion of the Republican electorate will not consider it legitimate. Unfortunately, this is part of our politics on both sides and has been basically since Clinton was president, because Clinton never won an outright majority. Ross Perot ate into those votes twice. Obviously, many Democrats never considered George W. Bush legitimate president because of the recount and the close 2000 election. Barack Obama ridiculously is not considered a legitimate president by a lot of Republicans who still cling to the dead end birther nonsense. And obviously Donald Trump, who lost the popular vote by 3 million votes, won the electoral college vote in 3 different states by I think a total of like 50, 60,000 votes.
Yeah.
And there will always be Democrats who believe in Russian collusion, even though that really hasn't been proven. But for all these reasons, there are people that don't consider Donald Trump a legitimate president. So we're going on now more than a quarter century where the opposition has had a substantial portion of them not accepting the president. And I don't see why that would change now.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.